Hello, guys. Welcome to the European podcast. And we're going to do victory lap because, as you guys know, before pay-per-views, I do the full preview. I I do tape study on every single fight. Write little profiles for every fighter, and I make some predictions. I don't. I'm not like super huge into the picks. It's just part of it. But this time around, we got all the predictions right. I mean, the straight picks, like the winners, not the not the methods and the rounds for everyone. But I got all 12 or 13, I think, correct. To be fair, like very few underdogs that I pick. I don't really put much attention to that because I don't bet. But uh, but I'm pretty happy with the results on the analysis part. I think I did a pretty good job at getting decent reads on most of the fights. So why don't we get into that? So we have UFC 316, the rematch between Merab Dvalishvili and the guy who he beat for the title, Sean O'Malley. So Merab gets the submission with a north-south choke uh, in the third round. I was picking Merab by decision. One dynamic that was like interesting to me the first time around was that it looked like O'Malley had the instruction to pressure, and Merab was like willing to scare on the outside. But then when Merab decided to push forwards, O'Malley would just accept the pressure, and it was the case like again for this fight actually. Like the time that Merab chose to push forward, O'Malley immediately started backpedaling, getting his back near the fence. Um, O'Malley was looking a bit more comfortable this time around. He was making better use of his jab, but you can tell he was still very concerned. Merab was pushing him back, and Merab was using making a better use of his takedown threat than in the first fight. To be honest, he knew that he had O'Malley worried about the takedown. He was using those split seconds to just strike when O'Malley felt like he had to move or like get low to defend a takedown. And Merab was actually like out striking Sean. In fact, like Merab, I think didn't get takedowns on round two. O'Malley showed a little bit of improved takedown defense there, or more than that, as he wasn't allowing as easy of entries for Merab this time around. A lot of people are saying that O'Malley looked worse than the first time around. I feel like Merab fought like way closer to the fight that he should have the first time around. He just won because like both guys. And I think this is part of like the consensus in our sphere of MMA is that both guys neither looked very good in their first fight. I think O'Malley did some adjustments, but he couldn't like close the gap in the grappling, especially. Merab a lot meaner. Merab looked a lot better this time around. He looked very good actually. He looked like the world champion here. And it wasn't just the cardio. Like he was aggressive. He was like putting the pace. He was hitting. He was a lot meaner on the ground. Knees to the body during transitions. Just knees to the leg in whatever position was available. So yeah, Merab looking like a beast here. And Merab more willing to try to use the front headlock this time around. And he went for the ninja choke power guillotine against O'Malley here in the last round. Uh, it was pretty deep. It had a little bit of space. So O'Malley turned around. Merab just got like tighter and got the like from a north south position, but it looks like more of like an Ezekiel grip there to get the finish. Shout out to my boy JDK. He made a breakdown video that you can check out on Twitter. If I remember, I'll put the video on the description here so you can check it out. So yeah, I was expecting like to see I was expecting Merab to take to push a harder pace on this one, to be more urgent and to pressure more because he got hurt on that fifth round with the front kicks, right? Uh, on O'Malley's part, I think pressuring was the right idea, but he just couldn't like follow through with it, you know. And yeah, the grappling was there. Like there was like moments where he showed that like decent takedown defense. He was feeding the single leg, legging out. He was framing on the face, using his leg to his advantage in those situations. Um, and the other thing that I expected from O'Malley was that taking more chances with turtling when you were like taken down. Um, even if even if we saw Merab like taking the submission here, like Merab is not like super hardcore about taking the back. At most, he's going to ride the leg, and that could end up in a bad position. But that's still better off. Like you better like wage on that and take that gamble to try to get back up instead of like just ending the round on the bottom, right? But yeah, I mean, Merab here looked great. O'Malley did not look like he looked like physically better, I guess. Um, but yeah, no, not a great showing to be honest. And all the lifestyle changes didn't seem like they were a big enough change to be honest. and and curious about like Tim Welsh saying like, "Oh, beautiful, perfect round" when he got like his ass kicked on that first round. Or was that? No, that was Tim Welsh was very complimentary after the first round, but the guy who said like perfect round was on the next fight that we're going to get. Um, but yeah, good for Merab. I was correct in saying that Merab is probably going to have like a better version of the first fight. I didn't expect it to be like so much better. Not that Merab looked like a completely different fighter, but he looked like more confident in his striking and his chin, and fighting a better fight overall. Pressing more, punishing the movement of Mali with kicks a few times, willing to counterpunch. So it was good stuff. In our co-main event, we had Kyla Harrison against Juliana Peña. Still some wild takes out there, especially from some people that it seems like they really don't like Kyla Harrison, because I was saying like, oh, she doesn't have any process on the feet. She can't strike at all. She doesn't have clinch entries. She's not an effective wrestler. And I'm like, I mean, Kyla Harrison has not faced the highest level of opposition, but like, whoever gears she was beating on PFL, like women's bantamweight is not that better. Juliana Peña was like pretty decent at one point when she was very physical, but she looks like very physically diminished. And that angle of being physical against Kyla Harrison was always a very tough sell, right? Like you're not going to outwork Kyla Harrison in a muscle sense, right? We all knew that Juliana Peña, if she had a shot, it was like making things ugly on the feet, like surviving a few scary spots, and then just like praying that Kyla Harrison's weight cut took enough away from her that she was able to like get her tired and take over the fight soon enough to win a decision, because or get a submission, right? But this idea that Juliana Peña is like the well put together fighter and Kyla Harrison is very big, is like I do not agree with that. Like Juliana Peña might have some better comfort on the feet, but I don't think she's necessarily better technically than Kyla Harrison. Kyla Harrison, a few sketchy spots like throwing her body kick. Not gonna lie about that, but she's still like mechanically cleaner, has better ideas with her footwork than Peña. And then like this idea that Kyla Harrison does not have takedowns is like kind of funny, to be honest. Like she mobbed like Holly Holm, even at past 40 years old. Holly Holm is still one of the strongest girls in the division with like decent fundamental wrestling, and she was still able to take Caitlin Vieira down. And like Caitlin Vieira, like we saw like 2 weeks ago, like Macy Chiasson was trying to take Caitlin Vieira down. She got getting reversed. She was getting her ass kicked because Caitlin Vieira, a legit judo black belt. Obviously not on the level of Kyla Harrison, who is like a gold medalist in judo, right? But she's not going to fall for the easy tricks that. But usually Kyla Harrison just takes everyone for a ride. Like the time she lost against Larissa Pacheco, she got a bunch of takedowns. So this idea that she cannot get takedowns, she doesn't have a consistent process. Like she has entries to the clinch, and she's insanely strong, and she can wrestle to the legs too. So I don't know. I saw some takes that were like overly hating on Kayla. I don't find like Kayla Harrison's style like super appealing myself, but I can recognize that she's like a other than a top tier athlete. She has a well put together game that she has been building over at ATT for many years now. I was expecting a decision because I thought like, okay, Peña is going to accept bottom position, not take a lot of risk, and survive from there. But I was wrong about that. Harrison just took an arm home with a Kimura from side control at the dying seconds of the second round. And yeah, she was able to get the takedowns. She was able to get the ground and pound. And you gotta understand too, like I saw some other takes like, oh, Kyle Harrison has not faced any grapplers, and it's like, big girls, they are all grapplers. Like she's not fighting kickboxers. Like, they may not be great grapplers, but they're mainly grapplers. Like the way Cindy Dandois wins a fight is by grappling. We all seen the funny games of her striking. But yeah, and you gotta consider too that Larissa Pacheco is big. Is big and strong. Like way bigger than Juliana Peña. And better on the feet too, a bigger hitter. Juliana Peña is not as strong as she was. She's a lot slower. To be fair, I felt like Juliana Peña looked physically a lot better here than against Rocky Pennington in a fight that I don't think she won. I gotta repeat that. She looked a bit faster here, a bit stronger, but it obviously didn't matter against Kyla, who is like huge and an excellent athlete on top of everything else that we already said. Before that, we had a fight between Pyfer and Kelvin Gastelum. My read was that, yeah, Pyfer is like bigger. Gastelum relies a lot on being like these super fast guys who takes advantage of the open stance matchup to enter with his 1-2s. Pyfer has some counterpunching, not a great counterpuncher, but yeah, he had like the insane size advantage. He's a pretty clean hitter. He packs big power, obviously. And I thought, yeah, I mean, Kelvin is probably going to survive here, and Pyfer is going to win, and that was the case. Pyfer very close to finishing the fight in the first round. Dropped Gastelum twice, or was it like 3 times? I don't actually remember that well, but then second round kind of close, and then third round like Gastelum like landing the better hits. Like I don't know if Pyfer was like worried about his cardio or what. But he was not like building offense. He was like trying to look for like single shots. And on the interview, like Rogan tried to make a narrative, and like Pyfer was like holding on to that. But he was like, it didn't look like an issue of like, oh, I got away from the game plan. It looked like your skill set is limited here. I'm not trying to like shit on Pyfer, even though I do think this was not a great performance for him. For a guy with his potential, this was not very encouraging moving forwards. I don't think this looked like a very different guy from the Jack Hermanson guy. The guy that lost the Jack Hermanson fight, right? So yeah, I don't know what was the deal there. Like Pyfer just dropping the volume. Gastelum starting getting raids, starting landing. Pyfer did not show great defense from the open stance when he was not like getting the reads on the distance, and was nullifying the entries of Gastelum with the hand fighting. Gastelum here did not look great. Gastelum obviously has never been ripped at 185, but he looked in notoriously bad shape for this one. He looked very soft and not super big next to Pyfer. Like Pyfer was huge here. So yeah, I mean, not super excited about Pyfer moving forwards, to be honest. And Gastelum, like, he's going to be like he's going to be journeyman at 185 if he, and even at 170 at this point, because he has lost quite a bit of speed and versatility to his game. This was not like a good showing for Kelvin Gastelum. And late career Kelvin Gastelum has had some decent showings, especially that fight against Chris Curtis. He looked in good shape. He looked very fast. He worked at a very high rate. Obviously, it was like a fellow stocky southpaw that allowed him to like get into a fight that was like in a range that allowed him to work easier. But at the same time, I feel like Chris Curtis is like a complicated matchup for Gastelum, who has like a very like minimalistic game on the feet and relies a lot on the open stance matchup against a fellow Southpaw who has like a more nuanced game. And I don't think that Gastelum won that fight, to be honest. Like I thought like Chris Curtis got 2 rounds and got done dirty by that headbutt on the second round. But even then, I thought like Kelvin looked like pretty decent there, and he looked like crap here. So yeah, that's like more, even less points for Pyfer for getting this win here, especially after the fiasco of like crying about Mexico. So whatever. Mario Bautista fought Pachi Mix. Okay, you guys can go back, check the podcast. Those of you that don't listen to all of them, but when they announced this fight, what did I say? Hey, Bautista looks like a pretty bad fight for Pachi. He's like equally as long, better boxer, can wrestle. Then I did tape study, and what I say on the full preview. Hey, Bautista seems like a pretty bad fight for Pachi Mix. Pachi's dangerous. Pachi's a big hitter. He has the magic on the ground. But Bautista, man, that MMA Lab transition game, that work rate from the MMA Lab, from the good part of MMA Lab, from the non-Team Welsh part of MMA Lab. But yeah, I mean, Bautista money with the straight right to the chest area in this fight, just landing it hard. Sometimes lower to the breadbasket, to the solar plexus area, but a lot to the chest too. And then Bautista from round 2 on, a lot of southpaw and just like level changing with the jab to the body, jab to the head in the same sequence, jab and the straight left. Pachi had a few moments on third round, but I still think it's kind of wrong to score that third round for Pachi. Like he kind of like rocked Bautista a few times, but then you gotta remember Bautista landed a nasty knee earlier in the round. He was like, Bautista did not fight like a super great third round. I think he fought like a safe third round, and like he kept the output to like still kind of try to win the round, but still like not taking the chances that he was on rounds 2 and 1 and 2 that were very clear for him. And I actually don't like when fighters do that. He wasn't like quite Salal maxing when you just like don't do anything on that third round, just scare around the outside. He was kind of close and he got in trouble for that. Other than that, I thought Bautista looked fantastic here. Hopefully people can forget that he was super lame on that third round against Jose Aldo. Can like take Bautista serious as an actual contender at 135. For Pachi back to the drawing board, maybe like Damon Blackshear outside. I know it's outside the top 15, but like both guys lost to Bautista. Blackshear actually probably gave him like a harder fight, and Blackshear looked very good in his last one. So maybe we should make that one happen. Like I'm not sure. Bautista couldn't crack into the top 15 in his first fight. Bautista obviously in the lower end of the rankings. So yeah, I mean, give Pachi like Damon Blackshear, and if he wins that, he can like try to enter the top 15 again. He still has time. Like Pachi's not super old. Vicente Luque fought Kevin Holland. I was expecting a TKO after hurting Holland, Luque on the feet and following with ground and pound. Somewhat similar to what happened in the Buckley fight, and it was like a bit similar to what happened in the Buckley fight because like Luque, he's so shaky now. He's so past it, and he's like not dynamic anymore. He was like catching Holland a few times with the left hooks, and that like makes me feel better about my read that Prime Luque actually like big favorite over Kevin Holland, but not anymore, right? This is not Prime Luque by any means, and Luque still had a few moments on round 1, but then on round 2, like Holland like catch a leg, Luque falls to the ground and super slow to react. He goes for a single leg. Holland grabs the anaconda. On the post-fight interview, Holland calls it a Dars. It was an anaconda. Like the arm went in from the side of the neck and came out on the outside to the back. For Dars, you go inside an underhook. Then you wrap from the side of the neck. So I don't know what's called. Like Holland just catches these chokes because he has very long arms. Yeah, it was very depressing. Even if it wasn't a Dars, like Luque has a very good anaconda himself. Actually, he won his last fight with an anaconda against Tembagorimbo. So it was super sad to see, and it kind of sucked. And I was always against this fight, but yeah, I mean, good for Kevin Holland, I guess. Bruno Silva fought Joshua Ban. I correctly predicted the TKO in the third round because Ban takes a little bit to get going, to get his reads, and to up the volume, to find his variety, and it was like exactly the case here. Bruno Silva was able to compete with the kicking. His transition game was not much of a factor at all here, which I was expecting was going to be like Bruno Silva's saving grace in this fight. Joshua Ban obviously has demonstrated like very strong defensive wrestling against the likes of like Durden and Suruya. But I thought like maybe Silva might be able to shoot from better places because he's a better striker than those two, but it wasn't really the case. It was like Bruno Silva relies a lot on like blitzing and shifting entries, all big movements, and those are like harder to pull off when you're getting pressured. Joshua Ban here playing the pressuring counter fighter, which is an archetype that I love when it's pulled off well. And actually, like a lot of fighters that want to look cool, that want to look like slick, and I defend and I counter, like that's actually easier to do for a lot of people. That's easier to do when you go on the front foot, or at least you stay your ground, which is something that O'Malley should have done. Because you just need like better control tools and footwork to do it moving on the outside. You see like Joshua Ban got a lot like slick counter punching, like a lot of pull counters, sleeping back, lean back, and getting back into range with shots. That was because he was under pressure. He was like making Bruno Silva make his big entries like more obvious because he was like always reacting to the Joshua Ban's movement. Joshua at the first round he was having a bit of trouble like corralling Bruno Silva, but then he was like using his distance tools to not fall behind, and he was especially with the long snap kick to the body, his good jab, and then we saw like and something that gotta be said, like Joshua Ban, he got robbed for the performance of the night bonus because like he had the most beautiful finish of the night. He got inside, got with a beautiful left hook to the body, pulled back. Bruno Silva throws the right hand. He baits, takes an angle, right hand over the top. He was like, and then he follows to the ground, and Bruno Silva is like ducking against the cage, kind of similar to was Holloway against who? Akira Kurasani, I think. And he was like just banging him against the cage. It was fantastic, man. I mean, I love Joshua Ban, man. He's so fucking cool. So yeah, very good fight. Bruno Silva was not looking bad here. It was just Joshua Ban being a bad matchup, being better than him. Asamat Murzakanov fought Brenson Ribeiro. I was expecting Murzakanov to fight the knockout in round 2. He did in round 1. Ribeiro has showed a tendency in his fight against Nurgoshai to counter from the inside angle with his rear hand, which is not something like very common. And Ribeiro looks like decent against southpaws. He trains with Andre Dida, so that's a good coach to have, right? But Murzakanov, I was expecting to win here because he's like the most sophisticated striker and more powerful and durable too. What was cool about this finishing sequence is that Murzakanov was like getting his entry with the 1-2. 1-2 just meaning like lead hand, rear hand here, not a straight rear hand necessarily here. But it was all like a bit different punches. Murzakanov sometimes throws like that Russian hook or Russian style overhand when you like throw with your thumb down. He was not doing this in this fight. He was like throwing like mixing the straight that he throws with like very little tail with the thumb up instead of throwing it like a thumb to the side, and he was like also like throwing it like a rear hook. So in the first sequence he throws like a loopy hook, clips Ribeiro in the back of the head. Then he goes in and throws like a shifting rear hook that turns into like a lead left hook, tighter, loops around the high guard of Ribeiro. He hurts him bad with that one, and then he goes like steps hard outside with his lead right foot, takes an angle, and throws like a loopy straight that drops, and then he follows with like nice random pound, especially throws him to the ground with a whizzer. It was very cool finishing sequence. Made a bit less cool because Beltran took a while to stop this, but yeah. The only bad part is that Murzakanov is pretty old, but he rules, man. Before that, Spivak fought Waldo Cortez Acosta, and I thought my reads were pretty good on this one. So Waldo Cortez Acosta wins a decision. I feel like it could have gone either way. That third round was very close, especially at the end. Spivak found some success. And this was like surprisingly a very decent watch for a heavyweight fight. Like both guys look pretty good here. And it's because these are like serious. They still have a lot of jank. I'm not saying like they are great, that they are like these technique masters, but I feel like Spivak and Waldo Cortez Acosta are heavyweights that take this shit seriously, that try to improve, that try to be good fighters, and it shows. So my reads into this fight is that Spivak is an interesting matchup for Waldo, not because he's a wrestler, but also because he has a good jab of his own. Like Waldo Cortez Acosta like has been running on the heavyweight division with his jab most of the time, and because Spivak is a good leg kicker. And the only time that we saw Waldo Cortez Acosta was against Pesado Lima, where he got leg kicked, obviously, right? And he got a very close fight against Chase Sherman, where he got his leg kicked to pieces too. Spivak didn't quite commit to the leg kicks. He was like landing a few ones on the at the beginning, but he was giving Waldo some trouble with his jab for sure. Cortez Acosta eventually figured it out. He was like counter jabbing very cool, and then Spivak also showed prepared for the jab because he was fighting with a very like active high guard. He was looking to parry and then blocked down the middle. He was blocking a lot of the 1-2s. The jabs were landing on the forearms. So Spivak was doing a good job with that, but then Cortez Acosta was like adjusting, throwing the right hand to the body, grabbing the wrist a few times and landing a few nice knees here. I was expecting Cortez Acosta to be like, the problem with Spivak is that he's very strong in the clinch, but he like lacks like super good entries there. And I was expecting like Acosta to be a decent enough wrestler and also like get like not great entries, so he was going to be able to pummel for like not terrible positions against the fans, and that was actually the case here. So yeah, Waldo Cortez Acosta gets the win here. It was a pretty good fight. To the surprise of many of us, I was like, I would never tell you that these guys are not decent, but I would also would never like, I didn't say it before this fight like, oh, watch out for this one, this is going to be a good one. But it was pretty fun, to be honest. We had fun in the chat watching it live. I did a live stream for the whole event, by the way. I might start doing that for pay-per-views. So if you guys want to hop in on the Fight Companions, just subscribe to the channel and join the chat during fight nights, man. Before that, we have Chaos Williams against Andreas Gustaffson. Gustaffson did not get the finish that I expected, but he kind of did what I said. Like, he was going to drown Chaos Williams inside the clinch, and it was exactly the case. Like, Gustaffson doesn't have like a lot of skills at range. He's like big and strong and scrappy. And Chaos Williams packs like big power, but he's very janky. And yeah, Gustaffson just like was finding clinches time and time again. But I also expected Gustaffson to not like get the super modeling that he usually gets, because like he was going to struggle with the level of athletes in the UFC, and that was also the case. To an even bigger degree than I expected, because like he was not able to like beat. I mean, he won this fight very wide. Don't get me wrong, but he was not able to like superimpose his will on Chaos. Because Chaos is very strong and it's pretty big, so yeah, whatever, man. Not gonna give like too many flowers to this guy, to be honest, for obvious reasons. So let's get into the next one. Ariane Lipski da Silva fought Wang Cong. I picked Wang Cong by decision. Both are kickboxers. Wang Cong is a bigger hitter. She's more dynamic. She's more fluid. She's craftier. Ariane Lipski da Silva has a few like she's very well schooled and she's scrappy. But yeah, I mean Wang Kong was just superior here. Wang Kong fighting a lot of orthodox here. She sometimes shows up like being a full time southpaw. That's interesting. And was like mauling the calf of Ariane with leg kicks. But then Wang Kong like just loves to bang too much, and that can get her in trouble, man. Because Lipski, I said like she has decent mechanics, she has decent pop, and that could get like Wang Kong rocked here and there. And it was kind of the case, especially in that third round. But and Wang Kong when she wants, like she can look like decent on the defensive. She was moving on the with the jab on the outside, like Volkanovski maxing a few times here and there, and she was looking pretty good. But then she just like sits down for a two hook combo and like doesn't move her head, and it can get dicey. Like she packs big power, but if the shin is there, the shin is there, right? It wasn't like the dynamic performance, but Wang Kong looking decent and now on a 2-fight winning streak after getting the upset on her second UFC fight. We have the debut of Yu Song Yu against Jeka Saragih. Very short fight. Yu moving on the outside. He fakes with the jab. Jeka Saragih goes 1-2 with a big loopy right. Yu skips to his left. He's fighting with a floating left hand here. Evades the right hand. Bang! Clips him with the left hook. Saragih was moving forwards with the momentum of his punch. He got put out. And I said, like, neither of these guys is like super great defensively, I said on my preview. But I feel like Yu has a better process, cleaner mechanics, and he's a very good athlete, just like Jeka Saragih, and that's like usually his advantage. You didn't get to show it, but he's a pretty decent grappler too. He's fighting with. He trains with a Korean zombie. His nickname now is Mini Zombie, or Zombie Junior, yeah. So, but yeah, man. Tremendous debut, man. Fantastic stuff. Looking forward to Yu's next fight, man. What else can I say? Kill and Salkilld for Janal Ashmouz. I predicted a knockout on the second round. I thought that Salkilld was going to be scrappy enough on the wrestling department and take over with the striking. I was pretty wrong in this one, even though I chose the right winner. The big surprise here was that Salkilld was not like scrappy enough to wrestle with Ashmouz. He was straight up the better wrestler in this fight. Salkilld just like getting takedowns against the fence, using his long arms to connect the arms and just take Ashmouz for a while, or connecting for the double legs and also for like high crush lifts. So Salkilld just like putting on the wrestling on Ashmouz, who is usually the guy that has the wrestling advantage. At range, you can tell that Salkilld was like the better striker, but the pressure from Ashmouz was like taking on him. He didn't want to deal with that, so he was like going for the wrestling like time and time again. I think that was the reason. And then the third round, like Salkilld like sitting on the lead a little bit, like just moving on the outside, trying like shitty takedowns too often, got kind of in trouble. Ashmouz maybe winning that third round, which again like similar to what Bautista did on that fight against Pachi. Like don't sit on the mixers. And I get he was tired too, and Ashmouz is like a violent, powerful athlete, so. But yeah, it was a cool fight. Salkilld looked tremendous, to be honest. So yeah, I'm not going to take like that much credit for this one, because I was expecting Salkilld to take over with the striking. That was not the case, so I'm not taking like. Yeah, I chose the right winner, but I didn't get the process right in this one. And we had the opener was Markel Mederos against Mark Choinski, and yeah, I expected Mederos to win a decision. Choinski is like not very big for the division. He's an All-American wrestler though. He fights out of Rufus Sport, Milwaukee, with the Pettis brothers and Rufus. And what I saw on the tape is that he fights like very heavy on the front foot. Merkel is like a leg kick guy. He's a former Factory X guy. He trains in the MMA lab now with Bautista. Um, but yeah, those Factory X guys, they know their jab, they know their leg kicks. And that's exactly what Mederos did in this fight. Mederos, to be fair, like looked a lot better than he had in his previous UFC fights. He looked great here. Mederos not huge for lightweight, like pretty decently well sized. Choinski kind of small. Maybe Choinski can consider dropping to featherweight, especially because he's not like insanely lean. So there's a few pounds to lose there. Choinski's a dog though, man. He's a dog. He can take the back. He will look for takedowns. Mederos was like destroying that leg, man. The second round there was like nasty sequence where Mederos drops him with the leg kick. He dropped him with the leg kick like very few times because he was going very low with the calf kick and like doing this sweeping motion. And as I said, like Choinski steps very heavy on that lead foot. He got swept off his feet. He kicks him again on the ground. I think he had like ankle control on both. Just slam a leg kick. Choinski shrimps, I think. So he gets like sideways. Steps on the calf Mederos, which apparently is illegal in New Jersey because they have like super outdated rules, and you cannot stomp a guy who is grounded. It doesn't matter if it is not to the head for whatever reason. And yeah, he stomped on the calf and then just sprawled on him like. But then Mederos like got kind of sketchy on that third round, like getting taken down and stuff. He still did more damage. I feel like Mederos won all 3 rounds. And thankfully the judges gave him the fight because it could have gotten kind of sketchy on the scorecards, to be honest. Like Choinski got back takes on all 3 rounds, especially round 1 and round 3. He had like good amount of control, but they actually scored it right. So it was a very fun event, to be honest. Like I did not expect this one to be good. I thought this was going in. I thought like, oh, this one is kind of dire. 2 uninteresting fights from the champions. Oh, they're fucking spam calling me, man. But oh man, I completely lost my flow here. Okay, so I thought like neither championship fight was very good, but the champions Kyla and Merab showed up to dominate. So that was cool to see. And then we have a lot of cool fights. Like the low point of the whole card was like Pyfer versus Gastelum and Holland versus Luque, to be honest. And Pyfer versus Gastelum was almost fun. Like if Pyfer got the finish on that first round, it could have been fine. But other than that, like a lot of cool fights, especially these 2 openers. Like if you didn't catch those, and Mederos versus Choinski and Salkilld versus Ashmouz, those rock, man. So yeah, it was pretty good event. And we have another pay-per-view, and we have the big one because we had Topuria, who is like the guy to watch right now in the sport. And against Oliveira, who pretty much the guy to watch in the sport has been forever. So yeah, that's huge. Let's get into some fight announcements. I haven't done the podcast in a while, so let's get into that. We have a lot of them. Okay, Paulo Costa is fighting middleweight Chase Hoover. He's fighting Kopilov. Interesting, very interesting. Costa likes his southpaws. So we're going to see both guys like kicking to the body a lot. It's going to be bloody in there. If Costa is still himself, which I don't know he is, he might like pressure Kopilov and melt him against the fence. He doesn't like do that anymore, I think, Costa. He's like moving on the outside now. He's still pretty decent, but and yeah, I mean Kopilov, like if you stay on like neutral ground or just allow him to like move and make his own shit, like he's the superior striker here. But if Costa can like start to like pressuring him, put the fear of the takedown on him, put him against the fence and to go with his combinations, it's very winnable for Costa, even if he's a bit short. But this is a very cool fight. I like it. Oh, we have Albasi against Tyra. Very, very interesting fight. I mean, everyone, I guess, is expecting Tyra to wash here. And Tyra is getting into a pretty decent striker. But Albasi has shown to be like the more composed striker. Like he looked, even though like nobody thinks he won that fight against Kai Kara France, he looked pretty good there. The Moreno fight, obviously he looked awful in that one. didn't even try. He was not even throwing. But if he's back to the Kai Kara-France form, there might be something there. Basi, the thing here is that he's a very strong wrestler. So it will be interesting to see if these guys are forced to kickbox with one another. Maybe not a great fight if that's the case, but at least they will get some like striking experience here. Tyra is fast and he has a few like southpaw looks on the feet, so it will be interesting if Albasi can keep it on the feet and if he will try to like impose his boxing against the more like karate kicking of Tyra here. A very good fight actually, not hated. Hopefully Albasi looks like himself again because I think he looked very bad against Moreno. We have Aliskerov versus is Bruno Costa the name of this guy? I have to. Oh man, I completely. Is it Bruno Costa? I don't remember, man. I completely blanking on the name of this guy. It's Bruno Ferreira. It's Bruno Ferreira. Interesting. Why do I have the? Oh yeah, no. I had like a weird feeling that these guys fought before, but not quite the case. Aliskerov should win here, to be honest. Like Bruno Ferreira is fun. He's dynamic and Aliskerov can get nuked. And Ferreira is also like a dynamic grappler. He's like a sprint judoka, so that's interesting too. And Aliskerov is like pretty judo based when he goes for takedowns against defense too. But yeah, Aliskerov should clear here. It's a good fight. This is good matchmaking. Not going to complain super hard about it. Oh, it's your boy, Eric Anders. He's fighting Leroy Duncan. Leroy Duncan is going to win here. Anders is kind of slow now. Tries to wrestle a lot. Duncan has not been easy to take down. He's a lot more aggressive inside the clinch. He's a lot quicker on the outside. I feel like this one is kind of easy. Leroy Duncan is like the most boring, exciting fighter of all time because he goes for everything. He does a lot of cool stuff. Like he goes for insane elbows inside the clinch, knees on the outside. He spins, but then his fights like never kind of rule. I don't know, man. I don't have a lot of faith in this being super good. Like both guys can scrap for sure. Like it can be a good fight, but I would not count on it. Kyler Phillips is fighting Lockdog. Great fight, man, because Lockdog has been looking tremendous, man. Vinicius Oliveira, man. What was his last fight against Saider Magomedov? Oh man, that was some showing, man. Lockdog is huge for the weight class. He can do it all. He can kick on the outside. He packs big power in his hands. He's like a surprisingly strong wrestler. Kyler Phillips, a lot of the time, like he is like bailed out by his wrestling. He likes to move a lot on the outside, do his dynamic striking, and then when people are not expecting it, bam, changing levels. He's a pretty good wrestler. He's another MMA lab guy. But I think I'm siding with Lockdog here, man. Very cool fight. Dolitza is fighting my boy Fluffy. This is a main event. Main events always you favor Fluffy, right? But this one is obviously like very interesting because Dolitza is very dangerous on the ground. I feel like Fluffy is going to be like mostly safe from top position, but you never know. Like Dolitza is very resourceful on the feet. Fluffy, I feel like he's the better striker too, especially if he gets Dolitza tired. He can take over on the feet. He's a way superior boxer. He keeps a higher pace. He's more technical too. But Dolitza packs power and has like good vision to find strikes. But yeah, I mean Fluffy should clear here, but it's not like super easy. This is one of like the few scary matchups left for Fluffy in the division. Terence McKinney is fighting Slavaklos Borshev. Borshev has to survive the first round here. He has been improving the defensive wrestling under Team Alpha Male, but he has been looking like more and more chinny. He looks like pretty done at this point. He's not as dynamic when he's attacking either. I feel like McKinney's going to get his usual like first round knockout or submission. Like he's going to jove Borshev, which sucks because I like Borshev a lot more. Kai Sakura is back against awkward MMA team Elliot. Interesting to see where Asakura's wrestling is at the moment. That's actually what you want to see. Team Elliot, like, obviously, like, past it, not in his prime anymore, but he's still very scrappy. He kind of strikes a lot more, and that could be dangerous against Asakura. Maybe the UFC is counting on that. But if he wrestles, it would be interesting to see, because Asakura is like very dynamic. He can put you out, and he can put you out when you go for a bad takedown. He can always do that. So, interesting fight. What else we have? We have Jake Matthews against Shidi and Jukwani. Matthews better put on the wrestling boots here. Like, it's not like he doesn't have anything in the striking here. But yeah, Shidi is kind of dangerous, but at the same time, Shidi can be wrestled. Matthews better look for like the big overhands and try to transition to the ground and top game this guy. But if Shidi keeps the volume and keeps like Matthews on the outside, deny good entries, he can defend a good takedown if he in those situations. And he's like the way more comfortable striker here. Packs the bigger power too. Matthews probably has a cardio edge, so if this one goes long, might get sketchy for Shidi though. Chris Curtis dropping back down to 170. Fighting Griffin. Easy fight for the welterweight debut of Chris Curtis in the UFC. Griffin likes to move on the outside, but he's not like super fast. He doesn't have like super fast feet. And yeah, I mean, Griffin likes to mix in the wrestling, the clinches, and I feel like Curtis is going to be like the superior athlete and the superior technician when it comes to boxing. Griffin can still like crack. He can mix in some takedowns, and he can move on the outside. So it's not like free for Curtis, but I feel like this is a very safe debut for the action man here. Michael Johnson is fighting Sal Hoover for whatever reason. I don't like this one. Like, Sal Hoover is going to knock out Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson has been improving. He has been looking pretty decent as a past it fighter, which is very surprising because he was like 50-50 when he was on his prime. He keeps being 50-50 now. Like, it's crazy. Like, he has lost some speed. He's still very quick, but he's clearly not as dynamic anymore. But he's like the crafty veteran, which I was not expecting something to see out of Michael Johnson. When you saw him on his prime, he was like, he always had like some craft and some ideas, but he was always relying on being like a super quick dude, super dynamic. So Hoover here is not going to be like annoyed by the open stance matchup here, and he's way longer. He keeps a higher output. So Hoover, a pretty decent wrestler too. I don't think that Michael Johnson is going to get like free takedowns here to bail out. So I feel like this is pretty bad matchup. So Hoover should be fighting someone like upper in the division. I know. Has he fought after that tremendous fight against Ribeiro? I don't remember, but yeah. So Hoover should be fighting someone higher up, to be honest. Wonderboy is fighting Mahetinha Bonfim. Yeah, well, Wonderboy I think is past it enough that Bonfim is probably going to win here. The thing with Bonfim is that he packs big power. He has leg kicks. He has a jab. He has a left hook. He has a guillotine and a Anaconda Dark Series. So I feel like Wonderboy might be getting to the part of his career where he's Wonderboy. One thing about Wonderboy is that he's a karate dork, but he has always been harder to leg kick than it seems. But it seems like I feel like now that he's a bit slower, it might be a good idea to kick him in the legs. And the thing that worries the most about Wonderboy nowadays is that he might get clipped in any kind of prolonged exchange. Bonfim, what he has is length. So Wonderboy will not be like saved by being the long guy here. I mean, he still fights longer, but yeah, I would not be surprised if Bonfim gets like clips him with a weird left hook here and there, and then goes to the ground and wraps the neck. I wouldn't be super shocked to see that. Kennedy Nzechukwu is fighting Walter Walker. Nzechukwu should clear here unless Walker can get like his double leg, which is all he has, and then on the ground like he can finish because he knows a few submissions. Like he's actually decent in the ground, and he has one of the best double legs in this dire heavyweight division. But I like what I've seen from Nzechukwu. Nzechukwu just like didn't stop improving since his UFC debut. He's way better than he used to, and since moving to heavyweight, which looks like his actual good weight class because he was huge at the 205. He has looked pretty good, man. I'm excited for Nzechukwu being one of the decent heavyweights. Walter Walker might have a double leg, might have the grappling, which is rare in the division, but he's not like one of the decent heavyweights in my opinion. So I'm rooting for Nzechukwu here. Lonnie Kavanagh is fighting Charles Johnson. Charles Johnson doesn't stop taking fights against dangerous prospects, man. Might be a bit too early for Kavanagh, but he showed to be a scrappy dude, a resourceful guy, a guy that can dig deep, can adjust in his last fight. Very impressive performance there. Johnson always has the troubles that he likes to build, especially on that third round, but he doesn't start fights in a way that is very conclusive to building his game. So he's moving on the outside a lot. He's not putting on the attrition soon enough. We'll see. Kavanagh is obviously like athletic. He's compact. He's a powerful kicker, a powerful puncher. He's well-rounded. Charles Johnson, very hard to wrestle, so that might be out of the question for Loney. But we'll see when they get into boxing exchanges. Loney is pretty short. Has to look out for the knees from Charles Johnson, the uppercuts. But yeah, it's a very good fight. Might be a bit too soon by Loney, but he showed his last fight. He can deal with the veterans. He can be the one making the adjustments. And he will start like hot out of the gate. So I'm expecting this one. If Charles Johnson is going to win, it's going to be like the late comeback against, like similar to what happened against Joshua Ban. Not that like Loney and Ban are like super similar fighters. I think they're quite different, but there are similarities here in the matchup. Mayra Bueno Silva back at 135. She's fighting Jocelyn Edwards. Edwards for the first time. She looked pretty good in the UFC. I've always been not a hater of her, but of her fights. They always kind of suck. But then she looked very aggressive, finally using her athleticism for something good. This light is like bouncing funny off my face here. But yeah, I mean, she looked pretty decent in her last fight. She's big, she's athletic. Mayra obviously not the biggest girl, like she's able to make 125. But she will have like the advantage on in the striking. Should as the more technical puncher by far. More craftier with dealing with kicks, which are like the things that Jocelyn does. But if it goes to the ground, like Jocelyn Edwards might be able to dog a fight here. Alex Perez is fighting Erceg. Erceg getting a bit of a step down in competition. Obviously, he's a former title challenger, even though he got like fast-tracked to that, and he's staying at the top of the division. Gotta say, rooting for my boy Perez here. Like him a lot, but Erceg seems like a kind of like a hard matchup. If Perez can get like combinations together and move Erceg to the cage, it might get dicey for Erceg, who has some bad habits when moved back. Like when he is proactive and he's moving his head and stuff, he's pretty decent. But then you move him, he starts like moving back with his hands down, something that didn't disappear from his Kai Kara France fight to the Moreno one. So might be interesting, man. Alex Perez has had such bad luck that I don't like him as a fighter. He looked very good in that fight against Nicolau. And he was looking good, very good against Tyra too, man. So yeah, rooting for Alex Perez here, but it's a very good fight. Oh man, completely blanking on the name of this king here. The Twitter guy who, and I actually watched tape for this guy. Is Asamat Vikoyev. Excuse me, Asamat, man. He's cool, man. I mean, it's funny because he was watching tape. I watched tape for him for his debut in the UFC. and he was not a lot of fun to watch. He has a terrible fight against that ginger guy that got through Contender Series for the LFA title, and it was awful to watch. And he's fighting Torres Fini, the guy that fought like 700 times in Contender Series, and he's like a 5'7" wrestler at middleweight. I think Bekoyev is going to win here. A superior striker, a very decent wrestler, and big for the division. I don't think Torres Fini is going to be able to bullshit a win with takedowns against the fans here. Bekoyev is pretty funny on Twitter. Like, a lot of guys try to be funny on Twitter. Bekoyev like kind of actually is. And it's funny because his English is not great and he's still a funny guy. Rodolfo Vieira is fighting Tristan Gore. Gore showed tremendous heart in his last fight, but he got getting spanked against Norma Dumont's boyfriend. But yeah, I mean, Gore is a decent wrestler and he's very dynamic and strong. But if for pretty much anyone other than Fluffy, you go to the ground with Vieira and it's game over, and might be the case again. Gore has a guillotine though. He has a nasty high elbow guillotine. Not saying that he's going to submit Vieira, but we've seen like the jiu-jitsu guys, they don't have like the greatest wrestling entries. And hey, sometimes you wrap the neck and it's done. And not making any kind of prediction, just saying something that Gore has to his side in this one. Okay, this one kind of rules. Danige is fighting Patricio Pitbull. So, the war of the short kings here. Both guys, pack tremendous power. So, might be a bit of a slow, like, chess match on the field, looking like who lands the big shot. Danige has like the crafty, like, shifting entries, but those might be dangerous against the counterpunching of Pitbull. But Pitbull's low volume might cost him here. I would think the right idea would be for Ige to be aggressive here, even though it's very dangerous. And I'm not counting on either of them like being super successful grappling here. But Patricio does have a nasty guillotine though. Why does the UFC hate Chris Moutinho, man? He's back in the UFC and he's fighting Malcolm Wellmaker, who looks to be like a huge prospect at 135. Hopefully Moutinho still has his durability and he can test Wellmaker, because like Moutinho is like, he's not great, but he like puts on a pace and he makes adjustments, and he showed to be very durable on that O'Malley fight. So hopefully it's a good scrap and it's not like a complete like job work. But the last announcement is Alex Hernandez against Chase Hooper. Pretty sad for Hernandez to be a guy that debuted beating like Menil Dariush in a huge upset and looking great, and then never reaching anything similar to that height, man. And I do think that he's a guy which at one point had a very high ceiling, and the career just never panned out for Hernandez. And maybe he didn't make the improvements he didn't develop a game that allowed him to take advantage of his natural gifts. Hernandez is still an athletic guy, but he's not like a monster anymore. And as crazy as this sounds, like Chase Hooper might be like more dog, more active, more willing to turn fights into a scrap. Hernandez has heart, but he doesn't like the ugly fights, man. And I feel like Chase Hooper is starting to like the ugly fights. I think I gotta side with Hooper, man. Those are all the fight announcements. I know there are a bunch. So why don't we get into this week's card? So we have Usman versus Buckley. Once again, we have Joaquin Buckley against an old guy. Usman hasn't looked terrible as of late. Like, he looked pretty decent but passed it in the Leon rematch. Then he looked actually quite decent, especially because took in a fight on short notice against a bigger guy, a weight class up against Chimaev, in a fight that I thought Usman like either drew or won. So yeah, I mean, going by that, Usman should win here. But there's a reason Usman has not been active, right? So I'm expecting Usman to look like, from here on, Usman is going to look worse and worse every time. It sucks. It sucks that it gotta be like that, but I think it's gonna be like that. And Buckley making a career out of beating the old guys. He's probably going to beat another old guy here. Buckley, to his credit, very decent takedown defense, and obviously he has like a stocky build. He's very dynamic, very athletic, very strong. Usman not the quickest wrestler anymore. I feel like Usman has a lot of advantages on the feet though, especially if he gets his jabbing game going. Buckley doesn't have a lot of process on the feet. He's a good striker, but he doesn't have like control tools. He doesn't have an active jab. He does a lot of like smoke and mirrors to get like shifting entries and that kind of shit. Usman should have a decent reach advantage here, I guess. I mean, Buckley probably has like super long arms, right? I don't know, but I don't know. I don't like this main event. I'm tired of seeing like Buckley and Holland like just beating the old guys. It's not something I'm like a super huge fan of. Especially Buckley like getting to the top of the division doing that gimmick. Like kind of sucks, right? Or co-main has Rose Namajunas, teammate of Kamaru Usman at... Is that Elevation team? Or is like, I don't know. But they train with Trevor Whitman. She fights Miranda Maverick, which is interesting. Miranda Maverick should be bigger than Rose by a decent margin, even though she's stocky for the division. And Maverick is a grappler, and Rose pretty good fighting against grapplers most of the time. Maverick doesn't have like the dog and the boxing chops to do what Erin Blanchfield did against Rose, I think. But Maverick has like despite being short, she has like a long southpaw kicky game, and we'll see if Rose like competes with the kicker here with her own kicks, which she hasn't used as consistently for a long time. She tries to box the southpaw here, or she goes in with a wrestling game plan, which I don't think would be like the best idea. But yeah, it's a good fight for 125. Edmund Shabazian is fighting Andrei Petrovsky. This looks like the kind of fight that Shabazian gets that crazy first round knockout, right? Like Petrovsky is a dynamic wrestler. Wrestlers can be a trouble for Shabazian, but Shabazian can actually wrestle. He has been in Extreme Couture for a while, I think. Petrovsky not a great striker. Like he has power, a lot of power, but Shabazian is going to be a lot longer than him. And a way better striker, more dynamic on the feet. Still, Shabazian is like good at that, and has more tools too. So yeah, I think that I'm going with Shabazian here. Cody Garbrandt is fighting Raoni Barcelos. Very cool fight. If it's like guys that are past it, that are not elite anymore, like if Cody sort out the vertigo thing that he suffered against Figueiredo, he's pretty bad for Raoni. He's like way faster, cleaner mechanically. Like Raoni's a very clever boxer, especially he has like good footwork, but his hands are wonky, man. He has like flary elbows. He punches weird. Cody Garbrandt is so clean and smooth, and he has good footwork himself. So I don't think that Raoni will be able to set him up very easily. And the thing with Raoni is that Raoni relies a lot on the takedowns, and if Garbrandt, as I said, like is able to defend takedowns again, he's a monster of a scrambler, man. I don't know if he is anymore, but if he shows like anything resembling his prime, he should stuff every takedown from Raoni. Raoni very resourceful though, and if it gets into like chain wrestling, maybe Cody's not good at that anymore. And Raoni might be able to get some top game, and if he gets like Cody worried about takedowns, might get... And the other thing is that Raoni has a very good jab, and Cody not a big fan of getting jabbed. So both guys have avenues there. What Cody still has is like the hand speed, and that might be worrisome for Raoni, who has had trouble seeing shots coming at times. So Cody Garbrandt might be able to nuke him. But yeah, it's a cool fight between like veterans here. Cody Brundage is fighting Mansour Abdul Malik. Cody Brundage, man. the jobber to the stars, man. Like Abdul Malik is like a high profile prospect in the division. But Brundish is actually a good test for these kind of guys because he's like dangerous everywhere and a good wrestler. So I guess I'm okay with this. Alonso Menifield is fighting Umar C. Or is it Sai? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, Sai is like even a higher profile prospect than Abdul Malik is at middleweight. And Menifield is a great test for him. Like he's a guy that can do everything. Gets tired but can't fight tired. He's a dog. He has huge power too if you get silly. And even if when the power still starts to like run out for Menifield, he's still a scrappy dude, man. You remember that Julius Walker fight? That was crazy. So this is very good matchmaking, I think. Paul Craig is fighting Rodolfo Bellato. I think Bellato is going to job him, to be honest. Michael Chiesa is fighting Kurt McGee for whatever reason. Like, Chiesa, man. He has the matchmaking in... He has had the good matchmaking at the welterweight, man. I'm going to say that. McGee can be hard to wrestle, though. And Chiesa, not a stranger to being sketchy on the feet. But I think Chiesa clears here. Well, Michael versus Moutinho, we just talked about that. Cody Durden is fighting Jose Ochoa. No idea how good Ochoa is of a grappler. I mean, he looked pretty decent against... No, is Ochoa... No, Ochoa is the guy that fought Lonnie Kavanaugh, right? Oh yeah, no idea how good of a wrestler he is, so... We'll see. I mean, if you don't know how good of a wrestler a guy is, you put him against Cody Durden. Ricky Simon is fighting Charles Jourdain. Great fight, man. Great fight. We'll see. I mean, Charles Jourdain pretty big at bantamweight. We'll see if Ricky's able to take him down. Ricky can punch, obviously, as we saw, as he reminded us all in his last fight. Jourdain, second trip to bantamweight after a successful debut against Victor Henry. Which was a very close, scrappy fight, but then Jourdain got that guillotine, and that guillotine is going to be useful against Ricky. But Ricky's a legit grappler, not only a wrestler, man. Phil Rowe is fighting Ange Lusa. A pretty good fight. The welterweight, to be honest. I like both of these guys, like decent MMA fighters. Phil Rowe, a bit of a head case. I mean, both guys, a bit of head cases, but it affects Phil Rowe more, I feel. He's pretty well skilled everywhere. Has a huge frame for the division, but and sometimes just doesn't throw enough or loses the plot of the fights. And the opener is Vanessa Demopoulos against Jamie Lynn Hurd. Decent fight. Jamie Lynn Hurd is very scrappy, and Demopoulos is not super fun to watch, but she's also scrappy, so might be a good watch. I don't know. And that's the event. That's the podcast, guys. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back during the week. Expect another video in this channel. If you want to watch me reacting to the finishes, I'll put a link to that here at the end of this video if you're watching on YouTube. If you're watching on podcast platforms, I'm sorry for not posting the 4 preview last week. Had a bit of trouble. So expect a new video on this channel and a video on the other channel. Remember, guys, that if you want to support me, you can always join our Patreon. Exclusive content now on a weekly basis. So you can help me still produce these podcasts, all the content that I do. Follow me on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on Threads. I'm everywhere. And that's it. For those of you that watch The Fight Companion, I'll be there on Saturday. I'll catch you guys later. Love you guys. See you soon.